few months back, to celebrate the 35th anniversary of my favourite video game franchise, I ranked all the Final Fantasy games from worst to best. It was my biggest, longest and most time consuming video yet, and thankfully it seems to have gotten the most views, watch time and done the best. Sometimes the more effort actually does pay off. This was an idea I had while playing through some of the older games for that video, and even if it might look like a way to milk it, this is one of the only ways other than ranking the games themselves that I really feel strongly about. Maybe one more, but we'll see. So this is going to be my ranking of the Final Fantasy games based on how strongly I would like to see it remade. But first, a few things. One, obviously based on my personal views, it's different from my favourite games because my love for a game doesn't automatically mean I want a remake or think it warrants a remake. Two, I will not be including 3 games. The first two are 11 and 14 because I don't know how you would remake an MMO, especially when it's ongoing. And with 11, I can't see any logic in it, especially with 14 being how it is. And the other is 7 because, well, it's already in the process of getting a remake. So it makes little sense to include it. It'd be like making a top 10 games I hope to see at E3 and including something that's already confirmed. It doesn't really make any sense. So it'll be Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13 and 15. And 3, it's mostly based on what I expect from a modern remake, not what I would want or my highest hopes for it. So probably a mostly similar but more action based RPG remake. Similar to 7 but maybe with some unique changes depending on the game. As much as I know some people want a full remake of stuff like 6 but with turn-based combat, I think you're going to be very disappointed if you really expect it. And just to preempt some thoughts, just because I want to see remakes and think it would be cool, doesn't mean I don't want new games too or I want just remakes. These last few years have proven that they can work on a numbered title entry, side games and remakes all at once. So with all that shit out of the way, this is the Final Fantasy games ranked based on how much I would like to see a remake from least to most. Can't wait to see how I put that into a title. Number 12. Final Fantasy 13. Spoiler warning for the first few entries, you're going to see a lot of the recent games here. A huge part of the hype for a remake is seeing things in a shiny, fancy new tech. So obviously the more recent the game is, the less impressive and exciting the leap is. I really don't have anything much to say here. The game is fucking phenomenally beautiful still, and just re-releasing it on a current system as is, I would be absolutely fine with. And in fact, I am eagerly awaiting it. This was originally a rank up, but the more I think about it, I don't even want a remake of this. The game is what it is, and I think any huge changes might make others like it more, but for me, I'm happy with it how it is. Number 11. Final Fantasy 15. Like I mentioned, this is based off expectations, and I don't think they would remake 15 but as the original versus 13. Honestly, if they did a remake but added a few things, like actually letting you switch between characters, integrated all the DLC, made a few improvements like better boss fights, Leviathan, this could be decent as a remake. But if I'm honest here, it'd basically be an improved remaster more than a remake. If I'm even more honest, it's basically a patch. So I think it rightfully belongs here. This spot originally went to 13, but when I thought about it more, I realised I can think of improvements to 15 that I want way easier than 13. So a remake to the most recent mainline entry really couldn't do much, I think. And anything it did wouldn't warrant a full-on remake. Number 10. Final Fantasy 12. This is the last one to be so recent. After this it scatters a bit more, but it's essentially the same reasoning. Looks beautiful. The only thing I can imagine a remake doing is maybe giving Vaughn a bit more love and changing the combat a bit, which I really wouldn't want. Despite being my least favourite entry, I love the gameplay, so I would pretty much have no interest in seeing a remake of this. And from my time seeing people asking for specific remakes, I'm clearly not alone. It seems nobody does, and I can see why. For people who don't love it, I don't know what much more there is to offer. And for those who do, I can only imagine a remake taking away from that. So it's possible a remake could do some stuff to make it more interesting to people who don't love it already, but for these first 3 entries, I actively don't even want a remake, don't even bother. At least not yet. Maybe someday. Number 9. Final Fantasy 1. The first one here that I actually kind of want a bit. I absolutely love this game, and a remake would 100% be a day one purchase, as would any coming up after this too. But the two biggest reasons for it being this low are one, the fact that Final Fantasy Origins Stranger of Paradise already exists, which I know isn't exactly a one-to-one remake, but it's enough of a taste to not really need one. And two, it's a lot less of a personal or big epic story. It just doesn't have the same draw to see things brought back, like the great characters or anything like that, or even the iconic locations. I would definitely like to see it remade, just kind of one-to-one, maybe add in a bit more. But I definitely feel like a remake of this would be a heavily more gameplay experience than a story one. Out of the ones I would like to see, this is definitely the one lowest on the list for a reason, but regardless of whether they ever do or not, I think Stranger of Paradise does enough for it. Number 8. Final Fantasy IV. The first proper big character-driven epic story in the entire franchise. And I know I'm not alone, considering just how great the PS1 FMVs and the remaster looked, I think it'd be fucking amazing to see this done. To see this world, these amazing characters all realised in a modern engine would be unbelievable. My biggest reason why it's this low, even if it is a much smaller and less impressive one, it's already been remade on the DS. It's been fully voice acted there, and again, obviously a very lower than what you would get from a modern current generation remake. It's enough to kind of take away a little bit of the excitement from the modern visuals. I know I would still shit myself in excitement if it was announced, but most entries after this had just characters that appeal to me more, worlds that are more fun to me, and other mechanics just outside of gameplay that would be more fun for me. I think it'd be really cool if they had a remake of this, but that included the after years as well. That could definitely be a big draw, especially for people who have played it a few times but have never played the sequel. But I know for sure, with this amazing world and all these great characters and this story, would be absolutely fantastic to see in a fully modern done up remake. And I know a lot of people would be unbelievably excited to see it happen too. Number 7. Final Fantasy 3. Despite definitely being higher up in the games I like more, it's similar to my reason for the first game. Just less personal, and the world is less recognisable, and the characters are pretty much non-existent except if you include the remake, which I'm fairly certain they would probably lean further into if they were to remake it. They probably wouldn't just have 4 blank slates like the original. And while this game is a very impressive by the standards of when it came out, I really don't think there's much here to really warrant a remake as much. But a big part of why it is up here higher than some of the others, I think the job system could be a lot of fun to modernise. I mean, it's fun enough when it's just commands in a menu, but to see that done in a full action RPG, which I'm assuming these would all be if they were ever remade. And there's definitely a lot of untapped things in this world that were never explored that could definitely be more explored in a remake too, delved into a bit more, such as the Dark Warriors. And this is definitely one of the most fantastical worlds in the whole franchise, I think. And a lot of fun things like the airship that they introduced in this game, the submarine, a floating tree. I definitely think this could be one of the most fun remakes, especially when a lot of people haven't played it. It'll be very new to people. And of course a remake could give the villains a lot more impact as well. It would definitely be a lot of fun to see this done up someday, but I know it would most likely be very low on the list if they ever even plan to. Number 6. Final Fantasy X. Obviously a game I love to absolute bits. And I'm not even saying I want a remake of this. But I have been playing it and seeing Let's Plays of it where I just thought, I wonder how this would work as an action RPG. I think Waka would be a ton of fun to play as if they did it that way. I think if you can control you in a summons, that would definitely be a lot of fun too. If they were to ever do it, I have no hope that they would do it in a turn-based style, so it would have to be completely different in a lot of ways. I'm not sure how some of the giant enemies would work. And in a weird way, a big thing about why I can't imagine it going that way is I don't know how they would work Lulu into it. I mean, how would you work her attack? How you control a tiny Moogle attacking enemies in an action RPG, I don't even know. But I think it would be interesting to see how they do it. Maybe you control it like a remote control car or something would just take over. In terms of visuals, it's recent enough. I mean, it's 20 years old, but it still looks fucking beautiful. I don't think they could do, like I already said twice, the more recent something is, the less hyped you're going to be to see modern visuals, and the better something looks, the same applies too. I would be interested to see how they'd handle Blitzball though. Number 5. Final Fantasy IX. I'm gonna be honest, I think this did drop a few spots based just on rumors about it happening already, so it's less of a, oh my god, what if kind of thing. But Final Fantasy IX's world is one of the most beautiful, out there, fantastical, maybe even above 3 in that regard. And while, again, it looks beautiful, especially for a PS1 game, a full-on remake would definitely improve that so much. Of course, the game is over 20 years old on the PS1. It'd be interesting to see who they pick as voice actors. Of course, each character being so drastically different could have a ton of gameplay variety. I'm sure Zidane, Steiner, and Vivi would control all very, very differently. The biggest hopes I would honestly have for a remake for this, besides obviously visually being absolutely stunning even by today's standards and just seeing the world fully realised, I would hope they would do more for the characters who I didn't enjoy as much in the original. Characters like Amarant, honestly, like any of these remakes, I would hope as well that they would just let you do like with Final Fantasy VII where you can just switch between characters instantly. If any of these, especially any of the post 7 games, mostly 8, 9 and 10, just because of how drastically different the characters are, if they wouldn't let you switch between them, it would ruin, I think, at least half, if not more, of the enjoyment. Most of the other games, it wouldn't be as much of an issue because the characters are mostly all human and would probably operate very similarly. But if the rumours about a remake of this game are true, I am so excited. I really hope they announce it soon because this is an amazing, beautiful game. And a full modern remake would just, I think it would blow people away, even if they're already expecting it. Number 4. Final Fantasy VIII. The only reason I think this is above 9 is just based purely on my love for it. It's one of my absolute favourite of Final Fantasies, of course. If you want to know exactly where, you can watch my other ranking. But I don't even have as much to say about this. It's a lot of the same reasons as 9. Still a very beautiful looking game. Even for a PS1 game, even before 9, it's unbelievably. It still looks, while obviously dated in a lot of ways, I think it still looks fantastic. Especially for its time. While the characters are all just regular humans, I do think a few of them could control very differently. Obviously, Squall with his gunblade could be fun. And would control very differently from something like Quistis with a whip or Irvine with a gun. And of course, there's a few other characters you play as throughout the game as well. Well, some of the mini games and the other segments would be a ton of fun to see how they would handle in a remake as well. That whole train sequence would hopefully be just as intense. Of course, there's musical sections to the game. The triple triad would probably stay the same because I don't know how they could possibly improve that. Maybe adding just more stuff to it would be fun. I just think it'd be fun to play as all of these characters. And with Final Fantasy VIII's world is one of my absolute favourite. To see this in a full 3D modern remake, I can't even express how exciting that would be for me. And even though it's only number 4 here, the next ones aren't because I like the games more. It's more based on how much I think they deserve and how much older they are. Because, again, can add to the excitement when they're older games too. Because the next 3 are obviously sprite-based games. This is before they went full 3D. So everything in 8, I can pretty much visualize how it would look. in a remake a lot easier than I can with the much, much older games. Number 3. Final Fantasy 2. We're going quite a bit back here, and obviously this game has had so many remasters it's hard to even keep track, but a full-on remake of this, just not like they did with Stranger of Paradise. I wanted more close to the tone and feeling of the original, but my biggest reason for wanting this so high is that I truly believe with a few extra steps, if this game had come out a little bit later, it really could have been one of the best stories in the franchise. It could have been really, really high up there. Like, if this had come out at the same time as 6, instead of back when they were still figuring things out about what they wanted to be and before they were telling their epic stories, this could have been such a phenomenal story. It has great building blocks already, and it's their first big leap, and I would love to see them expand on that. Obviously the characters wouldn't really probably control very differently unless they changed them a bit, but I would hope they wouldn't change the combat layout too much, I guess. I would hope they keep the leveling system the same, because even if a lot of people don't love it, I absolutely do. It's one of my favourites. I love, if you don't know, basically it's like if you get hit, your HP might improve. If you attack, your attack might improve. Using magic will make your magic stronger. I think they could easily keep that in a modern remake. And if they gave the villain of the game, the Emperor, a bit more impact on you as on a personal level, I think that could definitely help as well. Because this is Final Fantasy's first personal story. So like I said, they didn't have it all figured out. So I definitely think if they went into this with a more modern standards, I would hope they could bring this story to its full potential. And it could easily rival some of the top. Number 2. Final Fantasy 6. Now I know a lot of people probably would expect this to be number 1, and for I think a lot of people it is. And I definitely do believe it is one of the absolute most deserving of a remake. Being the less sprite-based Final Fantasy, you can probably assume it's still, for that style, looks absolutely beautiful. It holds up perfectly, even in the original version. And while obviously 4 and 5 definitely did huge leaps for characters, this game has some of the most iconic, well-known and beloved characters ever. And for such an early game, even in the Super Nintendo version, they all have very different mechanics going on, which could easily be integrated, having a great variety of gameplay styles going on. Terra with her morphing would control very differently from Setzer with his cards, or Relm with her sketching ability, or Edgar with his cool gadgets. These would all be very unique gameplay mechanics in a modern remake if they integrated them properly. And of course the story is some people's absolute favourite. And with certain things happening in the story, the world would be so varied and cool to see done. And they could hopefully, if they could do Kefka even better than they did him here, which already he was such an incredible villain and one of the most long-lasting and iconic in the franchise, this could be one of the most impressive, I think, in terms of remakes. And like I said, being a sprite-based game, to see all of these stuff turned into 3D full worlds would be one of the greatest sights in the current generation, I think, of gaming. So even though the next one is higher up for me personally, I do think 6 is probably the most deserving, just considering when it came out, the impact it had, and the impact it still has on people. I fully definitely think this will be one of the first they tackle in the older games. If 9 is coming and is confirmed, this could be the one after that. If not, it could just be the next one, I think. And I fully understand why they would. Even if I had problems with the game, I do think a lot of that could be ironed out in a remake, and I would love to experience the story that way. So I really hope they get to it, because this would be such a cool experience, and I know it would blow a lot of people away. Number 1. And of course, the remake I want to see most, Final Fantasy 5. Similar to 6, it just has such an amazing, beautiful world. And I think this game definitely does a lot more with the locations in the world. So there's a lot more places I'd love to see fully modernized. The core party in this game is honestly one of my favorites across the entire franchise. They really grew on me a lot, and I think with more time and more development, they could be even better. This could be, like 2, one of my favorite stories if the characters had more time together and interacted more. There would definitely be a ton to do, a lot of work here. There's so many different environments, and the world changes quite a bit throughout the game. And on top of that, the amount of fun ways there is to traverse this world, from chocobo, flying chocobo, dragons. So I definitely think for this to reach its full potential, it would have to be open world. They couldn't have this be too linear. And there's just so many locations in this game I would kill to see in a modern engine. The Battle of the Big Bridge obviously is one of the biggest set pieces in it. Some of the mountains, which looked absolutely phenomenal even back then. The Mirage Village would be terrifying if done right. And that's not even scratching the surface. There's probably 50 places I would love to see done with modern graphics and with modern technology. So with 6, sure, I think it's most deserving in a lot of ways. But 5 is easily one that excites me the most, especially after playing through it for the first time fully just a few months ago. So that's my basic reason for being number 1. Favorite characters, environments, and set pieces that would just be so exciting to see in modern tech. I really hope there's a bit more of a demand for this, because I don't want them to just ignore it. Because I know for a lot of people this is easily the most underrated game in the franchise. So hopefully that comes through. And that is it. Of course, a lot of different factors are going to go into this for me and for a lot of people. For some people, it's just going to be their favorite they want to see remade. For some people, it'll just depend how old the game is going to impact it a lot. Probably for some people, it's going to be the games they don't like as much they want to see remade the most. For the record, I fully expect 6 and 9 to be the closest ones to they will do. After that, I think 4 would be their biggest focus. After that, who even knows? I would hope 5 would come out, because while I do want to see 7 and 8, or 8 and 9 a lot, I want to see the sprite based ones done a lot more for obvious reasons. So let me know which ones you want to see remade the most. Let me know what ones would excite you the most. Which ones would make you shit yourself in excitement. I'll definitely do another one of these at some point, because it's fun just having an excuse to talk about all the Final Fantasy games for a while. Just having an excuse to talk about my favourite franchise, you can't really go wrong with that. So thanks for watching, and again, let me know which ones you want to see. We'll see you for the next one.